You know, it's funny, the paths that people take and how it kind of brings you to the same destination.
I grew up in the northwest suburbs in Chicago, Deerfield, and very middle to upper class. A lot of well-off people, a lot of well-off families with doctors and lawyers and real estate agents.
So I'd heard of Colt Cabana going back to, geez, probably sophomore year of high school. We both played in the same football conference. We played he went to Deerfield High School, I went to Waukegan High School, and we played each other every year.
The way I always thought of Waukegan as a Deerfielder is hardworking, blue-collared, and probably in my mind like machinists and people that worked in factories. You know, I didn't know. I was in a sheltered place of the North Shore of Chicago, and that's where Adam was from. But since we were so close, we were in the same division, the Central Suburban League North, and our teams would always play each other. So Deerfield and Waukegan, the Warriors and the Bulldogs.
And so I was familiar with him just from being a standout football player before I even got into professional wrestling. And then, 2, 3, 4 years later, as we come into pro wrestling, to set eyes on this guy, and I know him. We'd been on the field and had gone up against each other multiple times over, a 4-year stretch in high school. And we always whipped his ass, by the way.
Over the years, you get to know the different players, you hear the different names and the different people on different teams. And so while Adam was playing football up in Waukegan, I was playing football in Deerfield.
It's just interesting to see people that come from different walks of life and kind of end up at the same point. It's just funny to look back on.
It's that rivalry was strong from my teenage years, I guess.
So the Steel Domain Training Center was run by Danny Dominion and Ace Steel, and it was the original one was on Irving Park Road in Chicago. And I was in the wrestling business for probably 2 years before they opened the school. And I like to think of myself as the first student, although Ace Steel never takes credit for training me. He says that he polished me, which he did a lot more than that. But CM Punk and Colt Cabana came in about the same time, so this would have been like 1998, 1999, and I had been there. Thinking back now, it's kind of crazy to think about it, for their first days of actual wrestling training.
When he came into the domain, it was kind of a shock, because at that point it was just my trainers and the trainees and nobody who had really been wrestling on the circuit. So when here came a guy who had been wrestling on the circuit and traveling all over and had matches versus Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik, to me at a young age, I was impressed. And then I later learned that my trainers had taken Adam under their wings and kind of retrained him and trained him the style that I was getting trained. And that's where the familiarity really comes in.
So I was there for his first phase of wrestling training at the Steel Domain, and as part of his very first road trip, which was to Minneapolis. And once a month we'd go up and work for Ed Hellier, and he would bring up Danny and Ace, and then myself, and then when the time was right, when Punk and Cabana were ready to go on the road, they were part of those first road trips.
Ed Hellier started St. Paul Championship Wrestling, and I would say 1998, and one of his big things is, and still to this day, is he likes to bring out outside talent, because they kept on seeing the same talent in Minnesota for years. And if you think about those AWA shows, sure, they were cool at the time, but during the dying days of AWA shows, those guys didn't leave Minnesota. So every show is Colonel De Beers and Ricky Rice and Derek Dukes, Ken Patera, every single show in Minnesota. So Ed wanted to bring up some fresh meat, and he brought up Danny and Ace from Chicago, and I know he brought up also with him was Adam Pearce and Adrian Lynch and Kevin Quinn. So they kind of got in, they're in on Minnesota, they started making a name for themselves in Minnesota. And when I was ready to wrestle, after I finished my training, they took up a young Colt Cabana, and I started on the road with those guys, and I would do the trip to Minnesota, and Adam would be in the car, and that's those hours of on the road is where you form bonds and form friendships and start to learn more about people.
And it goes back to the Steel Domain, and it's kind of a heritage we're all proud of. So Ace and Punk and Cabana and myself and Danny Dominion and a bunch of other guys that came through there. It's kind of a little fraternity, so it's cool.
When I knew we were going to get started with NWA Hollywood as a branded promotion in Southern California. I knew that I was going to be able to sort of control the World's Championship. Coming out of the TNA relationship, Bob Trowbridge worked with me pretty closely because of the media contacts that we had in our area and the resources we had here.
Dave Marquez started NWA Hollywood in Los Angeles, and it was a big deal. And it was the first time in years that broadcast television of professional wrestling on a channel that was seen all over the Los Angeles metro area was going to be available. So it was huge for all of us, and Cabana wanted to be a part of that. And I live in San Diego now, so it was natural that I would drive up the freeway to be a part of that as well.
A show on KDOC in Los Angeles, California, on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, that's what the wrestling world asks for.
I was always promoting television and trying to get people to get behind it. And I knew that Adam was the guy to carry the championship on television.
And then I was the very first match against Peter Avalon, and then afterwards I went on the camera and I challenged Adam Pearce for his title. And that was kind of the start to the whole thing. It was the start to the whole feud. It was the start to everything, to almost 3 long years.
The very first interview he had on TV, he was there talking about it's Hollywood, it's bright lights, it's Los Angeles, it's a big deal. But he's there for one purpose. He's there to become the NWA champion. And Adam Pearce has the championship, and we may have been friends for half of our lives, but he's there to take my title. And when he does, the first drink's on him. So it immediately set the tone for what was going to come for the next couple of years, and really cemented him as that protagonist to my antagonist, and it worked immediately.
Scrap Iron Adam Pearce. Everybody's going for the gold. It's the most coveted prize in the world of professional wrestling. You saw that I just had a good time in here. I love having a good time, having a great time, but the best time in the world is when I beat you and I become the NWA Heavyweight Champion, and there's a party on me!
Drinks were on me. You know, first drink's on me, let's celebrate. But it wasn't gonna be beer or champagne, it was gonna be milk. I was gonna give milk to everybody. And that was my goal. And the lead up was wild. Again, Adam's such a rough and tough wrestler. You know, he's really like, the beautiful thing about, I guess, Colt versus Pearce is the easiness of the dichotomy of good versus evil.
We had been feuding with each other since the very beginning of NWA Hollywood, leading up to this match, and had done everything we could. I wanted to maim him. I wanted to put him out of professional wrestling. I wanted to put him in the hospital. I threw fire at him. I gave him a pile driver off the apron, threw a table to the floor. We sent him to the hospital. I mean, anything you could think of that a dastardly heel, evil wrestler would do to his ultimate rival, we
The
did.
program we had built where he won the World's Championship, it was great. I mean, we created a moment, I believe.
A nice long, I'd say maybe like 8 months of television and angles and matches and distractions, and eventually leads up to the match.
One of my favorite matches, probably looking back over the last 17, 18 years, just because everything that we had worked for and everything that we wanted to happen culminated in this one singular moment. It was a full house that day. The people were ready. They were ready to see it. We had put Colt through the ringer, as I said, and it was one of those, you hope that you can work long enough to have days where everything just falls exactly as you want it to.
One of the most exciting matches, and it told such a fun, nice story in the match itself. And it all, you know, at the end of the day, when my hand's raised and I'm given the NWA title, it was a real moment. It was a real moment in the world of wrestling.
Energy in the building was just amazing. It was an incredible moment. I'll never forget the fans' reaction. I'll never forget the reaction of the wrestlers in the back and how they poured out there to congratulate him. You didn't want the moment to end. You really didn't. It was that special. And I remember watching it on TV later. A good portion of the program that aired that actual match was this post-match celebration because it was so important.
And the place goes apeshit. 10 months or 11 months of a feud that we had really literally put blood, sweat, and tears into came to this one moment. He fulfilled his promise that he gave on the very first day that he appeared on the television. The first drink was on him. it was chocolate milk. They had the milkmen come out and hand out 500 cartons of milk to these people, and it was a scene. It was great because it put the National Wrestling Alliance kind of back on the map in the sense that, you know, since the Shane Douglas incident, some decade previous plus, you know, it had been dormant for the most part. And I worked so hard to try and reacquaint people to what the NWA and more importantly what that championship was.
After years of the NWA really not getting a lot of love, not getting a lot of recognition, now all of a sudden, you know, in the past couple of years, social media has really become a thing. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, that's really become an integral part of marketing, promoting, and especially when there's marketing, promoting, there's wrestling, so it's become a part of wrestling. And Dave Lagana did such a great job of making sure that if I was to win, he would have the footage on it, so he made sure to have a cam there and ready to upload anything if something specific happened. Obviously, a change of the titles, and it did. And Dave quickly put up the clip, and it became a viral thing in wrestling. And not only that, we were trending on Twitter. NWA was trending on Twitter. Colt Cabana was trending on Twitter. A lot of the top dignitaries in the world of wrestling, people that you see every single day, every single week on national and global television, were sending out congratulations.
Just to see the outpouring of support from people, not just on the independent level, but people all over WWE and TNA and the people that we had encountered over the years, sending congratulations, and just, it meant something. And it was one of those things that I don't know that we expected, to have the outpouring of kind of this positive energy, not only surrounding the brand, but the work that we had done. It was very gratifying to get that response. And it meant a lot to both of us, I think. And we hoped, anyway, that it meant a lot to the NWA.
It was a thing. It was a moment in wrestling. It happened, and people were acknowledging it, and they were into it. And it had its meaning in wrestling at that time. And here I was, this guy with a podcast, this guy with a YouTube show, this guy, you know, with a lot of Twitter followers. Now I was going to hold this title. You know, I think at the time the NWA had maybe, you know, 500 Twitter followers, and here I was with 50,000. And now my word was going to reach a lot more people, I thought, in that world. And it was going to be a real exciting time for me, and I thought the NWA too, to take this title around the world, because at that point I've been wrestling around the world, and now not only will I wrestle around the world by myself, but I will also represent the NWA, the years and lineage of that championship, and I will hold that with me as I travel around.
Colt Cabana is extremely popular. Now, why wouldn't you want that as your world's champion? The guy who's going to be waving your flag to everybody. He's booked internationally. And in those 6 weeks, the notoriety that he brought to that world's championship was beyond impressive. He won the title, he got the pictures out, the magazines put it on their website, Twitter went crazy, all the social networking. What we had up on YouTube, the numbers were climbing, so I knew we had interest. But then I get this call and I'm being told we're going to take the belt off him and put it on this other guy just because.
6 weeks later, they said, you know, Colt, the decision is to drop the title. And there's a lot of politics that have gone into this. It's out of your control and my control, and I tried to make my case, not being a super fan for myself, but just being a businessman and saying, please look at the business logistics of this. Do whatever you want, but don't be an idiot. Look at the logistics of it. And the decision they went with was with the Sheik. And so after 8 months of blood and sweat with Adam, and finally, you know, I was going to have this nice run, and when I won the title, the whole world was so excited. You know, a couple weeks later, it's gone, and I don't let it get to me. I don't let it stress me out. And so if these guys wanted to be the idiots that they were, and that's the decision they wanted to make, there's only so much. I didn't want to cry and weep. It's like, I'm just gonna make myself look like an idiot. So I'm gonna go about my business, and I'm gonna continue on my path of where I want to be. And if they decide that, you know, taking it off me is the right decision, I mean, I guess if that's their decision, more power to them. But I think it's an awful one. And the backlash they got, you know, not only on the internet, Facebook, and Twitter. I just don't understand why you would make that decision with the backlash you knew you were going to get and then you did get.
I struggle to understand even today what the thought process was behind that. Here's something that really sends kind of a wave through the wrestling world and brings a newfound resurgence of not only attention, but positive energy and positive talk back to the NWA and the championship. So here's Colt Cabana, who can be an ambassador for any wrestling company. Wildly popular, not just with wrestling people, but beyond wrestling. His podcast is doing great numbers. His exposure is infinitely more than what mine is. It makes all the sense in the world to kind of ride this wave of momentum on the back of somebody that not only wants to be in the position he's in, but has the means to take your exposure, your title, your name, your brand, the NWA, to a level that it hasn't seen in decades, literally. And 5.5, 6 weeks later, the decision is made to take the championship off of him and move it to somebody, the Sheik, who dumbfounded all of us. We didn't really understand why.
The reason for that was a decision had already been made well in advance that Joe Khabib, the Sheik, would become NWA World Heavyweight Champion on a specific date. Bob Trobich, if he has a fault, and maybe it's not one, but when he makes a decision, he sticks with it.
The Sheik was supposed to be the champion early on. Eddie was pushing him. Ed was dying. And I don't want this to come off as a joke, but Ed Schumann had been dying for 15 years. So to hear that Ed was dying was just like, well, Ed's dying. And unfortunately, he actually died. So at the end, he was upset at me. His boy didn't become champion the way that he wanted, and so there was a lot of emotion there. And out of loyalty to Ed, Bob and the board, I don't even want to say the board, Bob. Bob went ahead and made the decision, because it was his right. We gave him that power to put the belt on the Sheik. And it was all out of personal emotion and a death. So we're going to do it now.
The decision at the time was in the height of politics that were just so absolutely self-destructive that they were cutting the NWA into factions. It was not a good time. It was a poor decision.
Well, I'm not going to get into hindsight. I mean, I think there's all sorts of things that you do, you don't do, whatever, that in hindsight, gee, maybe this would have been a better or worse idea. If Colt still feels slighted, I'm sorry about that. He and I had several discussions at the time about why I wanted to do it, that's what we were going to do, and that it's funny as you talked about Dusty Rhodes earlier. At the time, I had said to Cabana, I said, you know, if you go back and total up, you know, if what you're focused on is the amount of time with the belt, I said, if you go back and total up Dusty Rhodes' title reigns, I said, you're probably not looking at a huge number of days. I can't remember off the top of my head, but you know, even if you totaled them all up, you're probably looking at a fairly short amount of time. I said, and I told him at the time, of course, you know, I assumed I was, you know, that we'd still be working together. I told him at the time, I said, this isn't necessarily going to be your only bite at the apple.
I took it as a slap in the face because we had spent the majority of a year previous to that putting our blood and sweat and tears and our creative thought in our sacrifice as performers and people behind the scenes into making this mean as much as we possibly could. And then it culminates at a high that's higher than it had been for at least 20 years before that. And within 2 months, the decision was made to effectively erase that. I had a problem with it then. I have a problem with it now. Some things make sense, and that don't make any goddamn sense.
Cabana did not want to be put in a program with the Sheik to begin with, and specifically didn't want to switch the belt the way that it happened. If I remember correctly, it was in like a middle school or an elementary school cafeteria. Now, I could be exaggerating that, but the pictures and photos I saw, that's what it looked like. It was in front of very small crowds. Not that we haven't performed in front of small crowds, but it could have been lit perfect. If anybody knows anything about me, we try to do it as professional and correct as we can with the resources we have. And there's ways to make things look better. They didn't even try.
The prevailing kind of attitude amongst people who are wondering what the deal was is that the Sheik doesn't have the greatest reputation. His reputation is that he's selfish and that he's in it for himself. And ultimately what happened is the story arc and that the creative input and the things that were set in motion by the National Wrestling Alliance didn't happen. The Sheik decided that he didn't want to do business for whatever reason that may be, and I'm not going to judge the guy other than to say what we agreed upon doing didn't come to fruition. He decided he wanted to take his ball and go home effectively. He kept the belt.
He became the character that I created in my head and imagined him to become. And on every, we had long hours and hours long conference calls over this. I don't think that you, the viewer, understands what really went into this. There was an awful lot of phone conversations and coddling and hugging and making this guy understand that we had his best interest. And he didn't believe us at all.
Counsel I had given Bob proved to be true. I had suggested to Bob that Joe Cabebo had what I refer to as wrestler brain. I was afraid from my conversations with him and interactions that the Kool-Aid of being world champion might go to his head, that he would begin to believe that he was doing more for the title than the title had done for him. And in fact, those were his arguments.
Cabana didn't want to do it. It went down the wrong way. Now the Sheik's the world champion and no one cares. And he's talking about, you know, he's going to be the first champion to take the belt to Japan, which Cabana had just done, and Blue Demon Jr. did it, you know, previous to that, which is fine if you want to create your own headlines, whatever you have to do.
100% the National Wrestling Alliance at that point f***ed up. It came back in their face tenfold. And it wasn't just that they made a mistake, it was that everybody told them this was going to happen, this is going to be a mistake, this is going to end badly, and then it did. And then the public jumped on top of that. So not only do the NWA and the people making the decisions there look like idiots, Cabana and myself feel like idiots because we wasted a bunch of time making something happen that now is looked upon as, well, that was great, but oh, they totally f***ed that up. And not only that, now they come back to us at the aftermath and say, well, now what do we do? And their solution was then to kind of, well, why don't we just redo it? And while I was game for that, Cabana wasn't so much, and I don't blame him because, again, he was in the perfect position to do things with that title that people hadn't done in decades, and they erased that. And then when they realized it was a mistake, it was like, oh, our bad. Oh, sorry. Well, let's do it right now. Let's do it the right way now. And nothing works that way. Nothing works that way. So I said to the National Wrestling Alliance, I will do this. Okay, you can give the belt back to me. It has to go back to Cabana, and I want him. The only way I'll agree to this is if he is given the championship for a year. Because I believe so much in what he was capable of, not just for himself or not just for me as a performer or us working together, but what he could have meant to the National Wrestling Alliance and ultimately what that would mean for wrestling history. And then selfishly looking back on it, if all of that comes to fruition, then we get to usurp some of the benefit of that, of being the people to spearhead that. And I think, and I've always felt that belt, the 10 pounds of gold that I call Sweet Charlotte, that's the godfather of all wrestling championships when you look at the history of pro wrestling in the United States. And for something to cause that to go away and not be a part of what's happening in our wrestling landscape in this country would be terrible.
So Adam Pearce gets the championship back in Ohio, and we here in Hollywood knew that we had to press forward. And I knew that we were getting that back and we were going to showcase it again. And basically, press the reset button.
I was going to be now back working with Cabana again, and it was kind of a rekindling of a feud that we were so passionate about before. And I thought to myself at that point, the hard part isn't going to be coming up with creative things for us to do. The hard part is going to be cultivating the kind of passion in Cabana and in myself that we had the first time around, knowing that at any point going forward, people who weren't even involved, who weren't in the ring with us, who weren't largely a part of the creative process could come in at any point and say, oh, we want Mr. X in whatever town to come in and be the champion. And again, how do we not fall back into the same position we were a year earlier of not having any control and busting our asses to make something mean something that the people who were ultimately in charge of didn't care about as much as we did.
We had, at the time, you know, we had a really good creative team working on the television show. And a lot of people, I think, believe that Adam programmed himself as the champion, and he didn't. He was not a part of the booking at that time. He really wasn't. He was a talent. And, but it was the logical way to go, to just continue what we were doing.
So I get in the feud with Stu Stone, and Stu's putting guys against me, Cedric the Hitman, James Morgan, Eric Watts. He's got all these guys coming at me, taking me down. That's the plan, is I guess to get rid of Colt, get Colt Cabana out of NWA Hollywood, out of Los Angeles, where he rules the world there. And you know, I needed a little help, maybe a little partner in crime, and that's when Adam came to my rescue. And here he was, this guy who was known to be you know, the ultimate heel, the ultimate rudo, the meanest man. I guess he had at that point, he had a soft spot in his heart for, I guess, the feud that we went through and all the time, and the blood lost and everything. A lot of respect was, I think respect was given there, and he came to my rescue, and I guess he was my adversary, my ally.
And finally, I was doing commentary on one of the television programs one week, and they were just really putting a beating on him. And Stu Stone was gesturing to me at the commentary table as I sat with Todd Kennelly, who's now with TNA. Come on, Pearce, you know you want a piece of this, playing off of the history between Cabana and myself.
This is what we waited for, the big return of Adam Pearce, just so he could do this. I should have known. We should have known. Wait a minute! Adam Pearce! He lays out Joey Ryan! He lays out James Morgan! And he said he wanted to punch Morton Lipschitz in the face, and now he's gonna get the opportunity, and he does! Oh, I smell a lawsuit coming. And look at Stu Stone, look at that little rat, just scurrying like a cockroach.
And then there was that moment where Colt Cabana and I kind of back up into each other back to back and then turn and face each other, and now we're staring into each other's eyes with all of this history. The people were waiting for me to rear back and punch him, or waiting for him to do the same thing, and instead I just simply said, I just saved your ass, you owe me one, and I left the ring. And so that kind of started this different dynamic between us that we hadn't done.
I mean, if you go back and you watch the footage, and you know, the story will tell itself, it's not like I was like, oh, let's be best friends, Adam. Yes, well, here it is. It's like, no, I know what he did, what he was capable of, and the heel of a wrestler that he is. So obviously, I stayed my ground, and I kept my distance, and I appreciated it from afar, but it's not like we're becoming best friends. Well, you know, why would you trust a guy like
so
that?
Now we have this interesting kind of dichotomy between Colt and I, where in front of the camera, he doesn't trust me. I don't really trust him, but now we're fighting a common enemy. So it's kind of that old adage, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
At this point, we've gone to the Glendale studios. I would almost say my popularity with that crowd has really hit a peak. And I think it came a lot with, at that point, my podcast became a lot more popular. People were coming out to see me, but also I think people had seen what I'd gone through to gain the respect of the crowd with the crazy stuff that Adam and I had done, and just the stuff that I put my body through, and just for the art of wrestling, really. And the people were really behind me, and it was really fun. It was really cool. And they were behind Adam too. Adam had really, I guess, kind of gained their respect.
And we had really, really worked this as much as we could probably over a 10, 12-week period where Stu Stone would be continuously being involved in the matches, causing interference, costing us matches, etc. And the whole idea behind that was a takeoff on the things that Bobby Heenan would do in the old AWA when he would be managing Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens as the tag champions. He always found a way to interject himself in a way that didn't take away from his wrestlers, but really added to the element of the fans wanting to see this weasel, this shitbag, ultimately get his comeuppance and get what he's due. This all culminates. We build to this big tag match, no disqualification. If Cabana and I win against Eric Watts and Cedric the Hitman, managed by Stu Stone, we get 5 minutes alone with
Whoever,
Stu Stone.
if we won, we got 5 minutes with Stu, and I think that was an exciting time on television. It was an exciting time for the fans, exciting time for wrestling, and we did win. I think I hit a really nice moonsault, and as I did, the crowd goes crazy.
It was great too because there's this visual of where I go through the curtain chasing after Stu Stone, and he had been wearing a sling because he had been injured on television a couple weeks before and wasn't supposed to be at ringside because doctors didn't clear him. And lo and behold, here's the ultimate shitbag heel manager out at ringside. And not only is he not injured, but he's using a sling to choke people, etc. So he runs to the back, and the people are thinking, great, we've invested our emotion in knowing that these guys are going to get 5 minutes with this guy. And he hightails it out of there. And Cabana's in the ring with the referee, like, what's going on? We get our 5 minutes, et cetera, and I take off, and I come back, and I've got his sling wrapped around his throat, and I pull him back through the curtain.
No, this is not right. Look at that man. Look at that arm. This is wrong. This is all wrong.
Nothing's gonna save him now.
Come on, Pearce. Have some compassion for the man.
Stu Stone about to pay for his sins. His mouth has written a lot of checks that he can't cash.
Look at that. I love Colt. Look at that. Come on. He's supporting Colt Cabana. Bought a t-shirt. Come on.
And he paid big bucks. Maybe he's going to have some compassion now. I don't know.
Somehow I doubt his sincerity. All right, this is what we've been waiting for. Stu Stone in for a load of her. Flying apple. Oh, no! What in the world? The lariat! No! Pile driver!
When Adam Pearce first turned on Colt and joined the Family Stone, that was one of the greatest moments of our show. I mean, our audience for sure did not see that coming. Half the people in the back didn't see it coming. And it was really something that was kept between only the few of us that knew that it was even going to happen to begin with. So I was so excited from the beginning when I heard that Adam was going to be working with us and I was going to get to manage the world champion. It was awesome. And get to work in a program against Colt Cabana, this is just like a dream for me as a performer and as someone who loves wrestling as much as I do. To be involved with Pearce versus Cabana was just amazing. And the electricity when Pearce gave him that clothesline out of the corner was... the whole air in the building, like everybody was just like...
And you could hear a pin drop. And then I turned to Stu Stone and I give him a hug. And then here comes the Family Stone and we commence to lay a beat down on Cabana. And that 3-month period of me earning Cabana's trust is erased immediately. And then we reveal that this was all a ruse. And that I never forgot that Colt Cabana beat me for the world title in 2011, and I never had the opportunity to wrest that away from him because I never got a rematch because of everything that happened with the Sheik. And so now this was the way we were telling the story to get back to that I was the straw effectively stirring the drink, and this was a plan that was set out from the beginning, and we were going to have our revenge, and we weren't going to capitalize until he firmly believed and trusted that Adam Pearce was on his side. And just when it seemed like it was time to really take that to the bank, we pulled the carpet out from underneath the fans. And it was great.
No, you cannot take me out. No, you cannot put me down. And no, you cannot deny me the opportunity to become the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. I will come after you, and I will finish the job, and I will become the NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
From a creative standpoint, that we couldn't go back to the slow burn, 10 months, build, doing all the same things that we had already done.
You know, the idea is to tell, I guess, a different story. You can't tell the same story. You know, Back to the Future 3 is a Western. You know, we're not, it's... What? Oh. I thought my line was great.
We knew that we couldn't tell the same story, it just wouldn't work. So we had to kind of get creative in terms of how are we going to get people to the point where they want to see happen what happened a year previous. And my thought was, why wait? Why go through all the same trials and tribulations, not just from a redundancy standpoint, but let's do something completely opposite that. And my thought was, let's not have a match. Let's not have the match until we're going to have the match.
It's very appropriate, Cabana, that we gather here in 7 days, because I'm going to beat you within an inch of your life. I'm going to take the blood streaming from your face to every single solitary one of these punks in this building.
Why so angry? Why so angry?
7 days. Redemption will be mine. And I will spit in the face of your fans. I will spit in the face of your family. I will spit in the face of the National Wrestling Alliance. And I will go home not only with the sweetest 10 pounds of gold, but the hottest broad in Hollywood. And I will live forever. You got 1 week, Cabana. 1 week. This is your last opportunity. It knocks one last time, and it will knock you out. Hit my music.
That first match with Adam back that we had, I won. I won the title, and I became a 2-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion. It was very exciting. I think although it was a nice moment on television, it was a nice moment for the crowd. The crowd was very happy. I wasn't as excited for it because of what had happened to me before, and because when I won that first time, it was so much magic, there was so much momentum, and it was taken away from me. So when it came back to me, this was like to me it was like, oops, we're sorry, here, let's do this again.
The fans that were reacting to it now, at least those who were actively participating in dialogue online and whatnot, weren't so much in support of the match and the title change because it was a good or a great, like, dramatic moment in wrestling. I think it was more of, okay, the NWA realizes that they screwed up and now they're going to make it right.
Went all the way through. Colt Cabana wins the title again, right here exactly where we're sitting in the Glendale studios, and this audience erupted way louder than it was at the Showcase Theater. And the internet was loud again, and people were once again into what the NWA was doing because we made it with Colt Cabana, and we did good by Colt Cabana.
My excitement at that point was still there. I was happy to be the champion. I was again excited to represent the NWA, go around the world with this title, and I did. I went, right away. I went to Japan, and I didn't fly myself over to Japan, or I didn't have. They asked me to come over. I had big matches representing the NWA with the title against Kensuke Sasaki, Go Shinzaki, Morishima. The list of super heavyweights who have been respected in not only the NOAH system, but the All Japan system too, from back in the day. I was now representing the NWA, and I thought, again, I could have done this a year ago, but I guess we're going to restart, we're going to redo it.
Again, the outpouring of support, especially for Cabana, was there, and it meant something again, and we were ready to rock and roll on that. So I wanted to capitalize on that, again, knowing that the agreement between the National Wrestling Alliance, myself, and Colt Cabana was when he won the belt again, he would have it for a year. And I was thinking about what can we do to kind of cement Cabana's legacy now as a two-time champion and really make it mean something. At the same time, capitalize on the exposure in Los Angeles, which at that point, the NWA Hollywood television show was doing really good numbers in the Nielsen's, and it was reflecting at a live attendance, and it was meaning something. It was interesting to see how a lot of us had become kind of local celebrities in Los Angeles, which is a difficult town to kind of get that kind of respect, I guess. We knew at that point what we were doing was resonating with the people that were watching it, and it was meaning something within the community. So we wanted to jump on top of that. What can we do? What can we do from a wrestling standpoint? What can we do from a television standpoint to kind of pile on and see if we can't make this mean something?
It's been more than 10 days now since Easter Sunday, when Colt Boom Boom Cabana took the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship from me for the second time. And everything that I said to that point, everything I talked about when I referenced March 6, 2011, I now get to relive. I can add a second date to this horribly recurring nightmare, April 8th, 2012 now, with Colt Cabana orchestrating it all. Cabana, you've beat me twice for wrestling's greatest prize. Forever etched in the history books will be that irrefutable fact. And every morning when I look in the mirror, I'm going to know that, and I'll never be able to hide from it. And I need to know for myself, is that enough? Cabana, is it really enough for me to look you in the face and say, you are better? Because maybe you are. Sure, bylaws dictate that I get a mandatory rematch. But what would beating you once prove? Not much. You've beaten me twice for the belt. For that matter, Cabana, what would beating you twice prove? Because all that would do is pull us even, wouldn't it? You and I, Colt Cabana, are on an entirely different level of hate. I want you in a best-of-7 series. And before you can say, stop, wait, you've got nothing to prove, you're right, you got nothing to prove. You beat me twice. I need to know for myself. I need to be able to prove to me I'm better than you. I always have been, always will be, and I need to know it. I need to tangibly prove it. I need the record books to reflect what I'm saying to you. And before you look me in the face and tell me that I've got nothing to put on the line, let me tell you right now unequivocally, without a shadow of a doubt, you are wrong. Because I'm going to give you the greatest opportunity anyone's ever given you. I'm going to give you the chance of your wrestling lifetime. I'm going to give you the opportunity, Colt Cabana, to shut me up forever. If you beat me, you take away everything that I've been known for. You take away everything that I've earned. You take away everything that I've built. You take away everything that you've already taken. Because if I can't beat you, Colt Cabana, in a best-of-7 series, I will walk away. I will leave forever the NWA.
The interesting thing about the 7 Levels of Hate is that it was born at the Glendale Studios with our program, and that Pearce and Cabana were really the creative behind that. You know, they needed us promoters to get behind their idea because it was 7 locations and 7 different matches, and they needed reputable people to say this is something that you should come and spend your money on.
And so now we've taken the championship, the importance of the championship, and we've trumped it. And so now I'm putting effectively my career on the line if I can't beat him in a series of 7 matches, 7 different cities, 7 different stipulations. The championship is on the line. He's the valiant fighting babyface champion. And he says, well, if you're going to ostensibly put your NWA career on the line, then I'll put the title on the line.
So there it was. It picked up 7 Levels of Hate. I was behind it. I knew it was going to work from the get-go. There was not one piece of me that ever said, this will not work. I knew it was going to be popular. I didn't know that it was going to be loved, and that's what it's become.
So it made a lot of sense that stage one was first blood match in Glendale for the NWA Hollywood, a rematch of some sorts.
Just logistically putting it together, I thought because the large majority of the story, at least what people were seeing online and on television, was happening in LA, that it made a lot of sense to have that first rematch, that first stipulation match, the first match of the series in LA too, and kind of give those fans first dibs, if you will, on seeing what kind of story we were going to tell.
The atmosphere in the room before they even came out was tense. The crowd didn't know what to expect. And when those two guys entered the ring, it was, you could cut the tension with a knife. There were so many feelings and so many emotions running through that building. And I really think that translated in the way those two competitors played out the match in the ring.
There's no quitting me. I die hard, I die hard, I die hard. There's no quitting me. I die hard, I die hard, I die hard. From the beginning I knew the stakes. There's no shortcuts in this race. People will laugh straight to my face. Say, kid, you don't got what it takes. No talent, no skills.
These guys worked all over the building, and I got to take bumps for the very first time. I know that there was one section of a match in particular where I was holding Colt in the corner, and Adam comes charging in from one end to the other. Colt moved out of the way, and Adam crushes me in the corner, and I die, which was definitely, that was like the closest to death that I'd ever felt at that point in my life. It was like a car accident over and over again in my
There's
mind.
that photo of that white turnbuckle with Adam's blood just dripping down it. And I think, you think about those magazines as a kid, and you think about the photographs. Television is such an important medium, but photography, I think, is very underrated.
Jimmy Cornette, who's been a great mentor of mine probably over the last 6 or 7 years, had this spot in a match that we did in Toronto when the Kings of Wrestling wrestled the Briscoe brothers. And it wasn't the finish, but what I remember was it really set the tone for what was going to come in their feud in Ring of Honor. And the spot was, I removed the top turnbuckle of one of the corners, and of course in a first blood match, the only way you win the match is to make your opponent bleed. So there's no rules, anything goes. You do what you have to do, but again, you want to bust the other guy open. So we had done a series of things. The referee is knocked down. I pulled the top turnbuckle off to expose the steel framework of the actual turnbuckle itself. And of course, I'm going to then ram his head into it and hopefully draw blood.
You see how physical this main event is, folks? How is either one of these guys? Oh, he hit it!
So I said to Cabana, I will pull the blue buckle off, and that's the buckle I go to. Boom, I hit the steel, and then I will flop to the white buckle. And there's this great picture taken by Shane Kidder where Cabana has given me, again, 32 of these white buckles, and it's literally covered. I mean, it looks like like the sky opened and it rained blood.
When I was a kid looking through the PWI magazines, those were the photos ingrained in my mind. What is wrestling? Freddie Blassie with that chain, around Tullis's neck. I mean, that's an image that's in everybody's mind who remembers wrestling. And so when you have that image of just that blood on that white turnbuckle, it's such a beautiful picture. That really sums up a start to a great little series.
I always remember, I think that's one of the images that'll be synonymous with these 7 matches, is this disgusting white turnbuckle painted red with my DNA. And of course now Colt Cabana's up 1-0 and we're off and running in the series, and I'm down already.
Let's lay it on the line. Let's talk truth. You're Chicago born. I'm Chicago born. You're Chicago bred. I'm Chicago bred. And when this is done, we'll both be Chicago dead. But on June 8th in Boston, look me in my eyes. The series will be evened. The score will be even. And then we've only just begun.
Pearce and Cabana working together was a very key reason in my decision to become part of the National Wrestling Alliance because I wanted to be part of that series between the two of them. I wanted to work with the two of them. I felt that those two on top of any promotion, whether it was what we were doing already as an adjunct to our own programming, I felt those two would really mean something, not just in and of themselves, but what they could do for the rest of the company and the rest of the card would be very, very beneficial. So those two working together, that was a key reason why we got involved in the National Wrestling Alliance.
I was really happy to go to Boston just because I love the town, but on top of that, to work for Sheldon Goldberg, who had been promoting wrestling as long as I've been in the business and has a wonderful reputation and name as a promoter. It was good to have someone of his caliber, a stand-up guy, somebody that kind of understood where we were going from a creative standpoint in wanting to brand this, not just in Los Angeles, but literally coast to coast. And not just for ourselves, but for the entirety of the National Wrestling Alliance. Of course, at that point, he was a part of that. He was eager and one of the first promoters to jump on board and say that I believe in what you guys are trying to do, and I want to be a part of that.
Time these two guys had appeared in New England Championship Wrestling. And I think there was a lot of anticipation built up for their appearance. And the mood of the people, and I think the mood of all of us, was just that sense of excitement and that sense of, wow, this is a big thing that we're doing here. And I think that my favorite memory of that series is just that anticipation going into that event.
So the second match was a Boston street fight, in which, if you think about it, the first time I won the title, Adam quit from the Billy Goat's Curse. He quit in the middle of the ring, he tapped, and that's how he became a champion. And the third match was meant to be an I Quit match. So as the second match is a Boston street fight and I get him in that Billy Goat's Curse, you know, my goal is to make him quit twice in a row. But what's interesting is he doesn't quit, he passes out, and the referee makes a decision to call the match. That he just can no longer continue in the street fight, which makes sense.
We just beat the shit out of each other, which is kind of one of these recurring things in these matches. The idea as performers and pro wrestlers that we give our bodies to each other and understand that we're going to kind of give and receive a kind of punishment that fans really don't understand. But in this situation with Cabana, someone I've known literally half my life, you kind of you allow some liberties to be taken that you wouldn't otherwise with someone who you don't know as well, if that makes any sense.
It lived up to our expectations quite well. I would say that all the things that I was hoping to get out of hosting these two matches, we got. We got the benefit of working with those two talents. We got a chance to be a part of something a little bit bigger than ourselves. We had a chance to be a part of a series that I think is going to go down in history as a very important series as far as professional wrestling goes outside of the major companies. And it brought new people into our company, new fans into our company, and all in all, I thought it was it lived up to our expectations quite well.
And it was a victory for me. It was number 2. I was up 2-0, but it's interesting that we're going into an I Quit match, and I have put him in this Billy Goat's Curse, and he doesn't quit. He just passes out. So you think about what's the next strategy for the next match. You know, here's a guy who's not quitting from my my patented maneuver, my finishing maneuver. And so that was something that I thought about going into the next match.
And so it's a small room in Bridgewater, Massachusetts that's filled, packed, and thank God they made good money that night. And yeah, man, we laid the wood, and it was an honor to do so for a promoter like Sheldon.
I know you hate the fact that I am the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. You are a desperate man, Adam. You are a desperate man, and desperate times call for desperate measures. As cliche as it sounds, July 7th, Steel Domain Wrestling, Hopkins, Minnesota. The match is the time when you say, I quit.
Stage 3 was kind of a going home, so to speak, because Ed Hellier in the Twin Cities promoted that. And again, as we talked about, one of the very first promoters that I worked for outside of the Chicago area was Ed. And Cabana's first road trips in wrestling period were for Ed Hellier going to the Twin Cities. So it meant a lot to me anyway when Ed jumped on board, even though he wasn't a member or an associate of the National Wrestling Alliance at all at that point.
Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana worked together. Again, this is a dozen years ago plus in Steel Domain Wrestling. There's a certain magic that happens when particular wrestlers get together, whether it's, you know, Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes or Harley Race back in the day, and I think that Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana have that magic.
Those were the first road trips. That's where me and Adam got a. That's where Adam and I bonded over wrestling, became friends. That's where this whole relationship starts.
When Colt Cabana came into the ring, first of all, even before the match started, and Adam Pearce, and this again is how many years removed from their heyday in Steel Domain Wrestling, they still had an instant impact. People reacted to them as if they had wrestled last week.
It was great, and I always love this match. It's one of my favorite matches of the series because Cabana had the idea to really swerve the people. And the story there is Cabana couldn't make Pearce quit in the second match, and Pearce couldn't make Cabana quit in the second match, or the first match for that matter. Now it's an I quit match where, again, the only way you could win is to make your opponent utter the words I quit. They have to audibly quit. I've had enough.
So obviously Adam wants to make me quit, and that's the rules of the game. And he does so much that he dismantles the ring, disrespects the wrestling ring itself. It's obviously a good plan.
So I'm holding the actual steel framing of the turnbuckle, and I'm going to try and cave his head in with it. And we struggle over that, and I end up kicking him low and literally wrapping the top rope around his throat and sitting back in a camel clutch and strangling him.
In the same way that I made Adam pass out in that Boston Street fight, now all of a sudden I have passed out myself in this I Quit match, and the same decision has been made now to call the match because I cannot continue.
I've got the belt and I'm leaving, and the people are booing and they're throwing garbage in the ring and they're throwing garbage at me, and they hate what just happened.
The finish of the match, people were absolutely irate at the way the match ended, and Ed, you and I had talked about this. When the match was restarted, it was like the fever pitch started all over again.
I remember telling the ring announcer, stand right next to where Cabana's laying on the mat, and as you raise the microphone to your mouth to make the official decision, ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the match, he's going to reach up and grab your elbow and pull the microphone away from your mouth.
The ring announcer goes to make it an official decision. You know, you see me, reach up and grab the mic.
Even though Colt Cabana did not say I quit, the referee's official decision is to stop this contest.
No. Wait a second, that's not right.
This contest and award the contest to the.
Wait a second, Cabana.
Wait.
Cabana.
Never did I or will I say I quit.
Oh!
Oh my word, what does that mean now?
Wait a second, is this match continuing?
If you want to be the champion, Pearce, you better get in here and you better finish the job.
Oh! Colt Cabana is still in this.
You almost hear that Rocky music kick in as Adam then comes back, and I'm fighting from underneath. And again, I never said I quit, and that was the rules. And here I was fighting from underneath, eventually to put Adam in the same situation that he had put me in early in the match.
Cabana gets this wave of momentum from the people, and they're going crazy. And He ends up I get the top rope wrapped around my throat, and then he traps me in his Boston Crab again, now with the rope around my throat, which didn't feel very good when you look at, you could tell. And I have to be the one to say I quit. And so now he forces me to quit when I hadn't to that point. So it puts me down 3-0, and really my back's against the wall. And I just thought it was a really unique way of capitalizing off of what we had already done to further the story in the third match, all at the same time putting me behind a 3-0 deficit.
And you know, the other thing too is, you know, did the fans react? Well, I would say so. My wife, who rarely does this, decided she wanted to go down at ringside at the timekeeper's table and watch the match, which she rarely does. But she knows, you know, Cabana and Pearce, and thought that this would be worth being, you know, right there in front of it. And, you know, she doesn't get too involved that often, but she grabbed a chair out of a fan's hand that was trying to waffle Pearce. And I've never seen her do that before, you know, all 140 pounds of her. And she just, you know, it was, the reaction was incredible.
We've had some amazing matches.
One security guy in the wheelchair chased the guy out of the building to get that chair back.
Smoke was coming out of the wheels of the wheelchair. We've had some great matches in Steel Domain Wrestling history, and this one, without question, in my mind, was the greatest single wrestling match that SDW has had to date.
I didn't say it'd be easy, Mick.
Oh, yeah.
I never said it would be easy. But I did not say I quit. And it's 3-0, Pearce, and you're back behind the wall.
Hey, please. What's up, two? It's 3-0. It's 3-0. It's 3-0. It's 3-0. It's 3-0. A champ.
So stage 4 is a 2 out of 3 fall match. It's in Kansas City for Metro Pro, one of my favorite places to work. And I'm sick. And I'm not just, I don't have a cold. I'm legitimately, the entire week previous to going, in bed with
Adam
a
Pearce
fever.
gets off the plane in Kansas City International Airport, pick him up. He has a 102-degree fever. He had talked about how he decided to come at the last minute because he could barely get out of bed. He was so dehydrated and sick.
And not only am I sick as a dog, we've got to go 2 out of 3 falls. It's July. It's hot. And I don't mind saying it, literally, I was a sack of shit that day. I remember walking into the building, peaked and pale, and I said to Cabana, my fever is down today. He's like, oh, good. What is it? And I said, 102.
You would have never known Adam Pearce was that sick for that match. Even though he likes to rip on the match and say he was so bad and it was horrible and all this, the fact of the matter is Adam Pearce will always bring the energy and the charisma to the ring, so it's always good. And Colt Cabana, obviously, the fans had his side of it, so it was a great night for everybody in Kansas City.
As we're wrestling, I said, dude, this is 100% on you tonight. Like, take care of me. And I don't know if he thought I was full of it or not as sick as I was, but I remember we're kind of just chain wrestling, and he's calling tackle, get it again, and then headlock takeover after headlock takeover, and finally I cinched it on him. I said, enough fucking tackle, enough headlock takeover. What are you doing? I'm going to die in here. And he's like, oh, you're so heavy and sluggish. Like, I'm fucking sick. I told you, I should be in bed. I should be eating chicken soup. And we're running tackle spots for no reason, you asshole.
I think at the time he was actually really sick. So he really put out a hell of an outing for himself.
And as it so happened in the story, this is where the evil gets their first taste of victory, right? And so when I should be ultra aggressive and over the top in how evil I am and what we were going to do to tell that story, I literally had problems running across the ring. And I will 100% in front of the entire world say, not only was it not one of my better efforts as a performer, but the credit for anyone to think that match was good should go 100% to Colt Cabana.
Straight out of the shy, Mr. Shake and Bake, 45. Wrestling cause he feels alive. Great memories and good times. Said no to corporate America. Give it up for your favorite character. Cabana Rebel with his headband on. Globetrotter from here to England. And when he's back in the shy, he's gonna go to Maxwell Street. Get on his bad side, hit you with the flying apple, and you find yourself spin beat. Said shimmy, shimmy.
Adam wins the match, and now it's 3-1. I wasn't really aware. I guess it was in the stipulations that I really didn't know that Adam was not to take the title. And again, I think that was a big political move.
The NWA World title obviously doesn't change that much, even in today's standards. And the fact that we had one in Kansas City will always be close to my heart. And it was great to all the people involved that night. And you don't understand how many people came up to me after that match and said, you know, this is unbelievable. I grew up watching the NWA World title with Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and all this. And even though those days are past, the fact that Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana were part of this and you had the world title change hands in Kansas City, that's a big moment for kids to adults, and it was a great night.
Adam's going to take the title all over the world again now, and he'll represent it as this feud or series continues. Hopefully I would then win the next one and he would retire and I would take the title back.
It was an honor to be part of the best series of matches in independent pro wrestling on a national scale, and I don't know how many years. And the fact that who knows if that's ever going to happen again.
Just looking back on it, even though I'm not proud of my performance in the match per se, I always will be happy that we were able to kind of make a tick mark in the history column again for Kansas City, because I think the fans deserve it.
And for all intents and purposes, as I sit here today, jovial as can be and happy at my accomplishment, as I earned it fair and square. August 18th, Bridgewater, Massachusetts, New England Championship Wrestling. They're going to put a dog collar around my neck. 15 feet across from me, they're going to put a collar around your neck. And between us is going to be 15 foot of steel chain. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Accept things for the way they are. Tonight I shine. In less than a month, we both shed blood. And the truth in the matter, Cabana, is I'm in no better position today than I was before I came to this stinking town. It's 3-1. My back is against the wall. But remember this. I've got everything and nothing to lose at the same time.
Going back to Boston now, knowing that I'm going to win this fifth match, it's going to be a dog collar match. We got a 15-foot steel chain connected at the throat by legitimate dog collars. This was one of those matches where Cabana, as a performer, knew my job tonight is to take an ass whipping and bleed all over this building and give the complete opposite of what we had given 3 months earlier to the same fight.
I booked these matches twice because I felt that those two individuals were going to be beneficial to New England Championship Wrestling just by their presence alone. It wasn't because I felt that we were going to draw appreciably more one time versus another time, but I really felt that having the opportunity to have an Adam Pearce and a Colt Cabana in our company 2 times would give them a chance to get familiar with our talent and our roster, give our company the benefit of their star power on our cards, and also looking forward, wanting to work with either or both of them in the future. This gives them a window into what we were doing so that when we would bring back a Colt Cabana or an Adam Pearce, they would have a feel for the guys that were already there. So it made a lot of sense because I wanted to incorporate them into our company beyond just those 2 matches.
It's 3-1, and the antagonist has finally shown first signs of life, where Cabana the entire time, not only in television in LA but now in Kansas City, has been making a point to tell the fans This is going to be a 4 matches and done. It's going to be a clean sweep. Bring out the brooms. Off we go. Goodbye, Pearce. Now we've taken that and kind of turned it on its ear. So he now, even though he's leading 3-1, has lost the momentum of the series.
You know, this was a match now where it comes 3-2 as Adam wins, and now the momentum is on his side, and I'm no longer the NWA champion, and now Adam holds this title, and it's now his, and it's almost like I'm now rechasing him.
Knowing that, I assumed that the people, my thought was the people, the fans that would come to the match still would have the incentive to come and cheer for Cabana, because if I lose, that's it. I'm down 4-1, even though I won a match. That's the end of the series. But I think what the reality was is a lot of those fans, knowing just how wrestling and storytelling works, assumed that that I would win that match, and they were right.
When you have the babyface go over in the first match, the people go home happy, and I think by bringing them back and having the second match be a situation where Adam went over, I think it would have been more beneficial if I were booking it to reverse the finishes and have Pearce go over the first time and then have Cabana get his revenge in the second. They wanted to do it the way they wanted to do it, and I was perfectly fine with that, because we had pretty much bought into the whole concept of the 7 levels of hate, and we had pretty much bought into the concept of what Adam was trying to do with the series. So while in an ideal world I would have flip-flopped the finishes, I understand why he was booking it the way he booked it, and I didn't see any reason to disagree with it.
The dog collar match itself was pretty brutal. I remember that chain was. I was scared of it. I was scared of it knocking my teeth out. That was like my big. I should have worn a mouth guard. That was my big thing. Was that's always a big thing for wrestlers. Is I think they're scared of their teeth and their nose to be broken, and so the chain was really unforgiving. And you know, I think within the first 10 seconds, you see me grab my chin. I'd been busted open. My chin had been busted open within the first 10 seconds of that thing. So that I knew that was almost going to be the pace of the match, was that this chain was going to be everywhere, and it was going to be wild, and it was going to be knocking people out and knocking people open, and there was going to be some blood flowing. So that was really a scary part of knowing that within the first 10 seconds of that was the pace of the match, and it was a wild, brutal match.
I knew I had guys behind me that were going to go all out to make it something special. And you don't always get that, especially on this level of the business.
Remember this, our destinies, they don't happen by chance. Destiny happens by choice. You made the unfortunate choice of leaving the door open a crack for me, and I made the choice of kicking a fucker in. I'll see you in Oregon.
We had heard rumblings about halfway through the series that there was a series of lawsuits filed against the National Wrestling Alliance by Bruce Tharp, who was a member in Texas, and his business partner, Chris Ronquillo, who runs NWA Houston.
During the entire time this was going on, we were involved as an organization in litigation. 2 gentlemen, a wine salesman and an attorney out of Texas, had joined the organization and almost immediately fabricated reasons to litigate.
They asked me to be a part of this, and in being a part of it, I didn't agree with what they wanted to do. And so within 24 hours, I became public enemy number 1.
It's always easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. I'm not fond of doing it. Unfortunately, in pro wrestling, oftentimes egos, tempers get in the way of solid business decisions in the best interests of pro wrestling.
I personally was being sued, along with 5 others. Fred was also being sued, but he made an agreement, along with Mike Searcy, and so they were let out of it early on because they were like, oh, don't sue us.
And the end of that story is they were successful. It was fought until the organization literally ran out of money. And at that time, we had no greater ability to fight. And the friendly Brownsville court wasn't making that fight easy for Pro Wrestling Organization LLC, myself, Bob Trowbridge, and others.
I hear the stories, and I'm like, these guys suck. I don't want to be really involved with these people. From what I hear, they just sound like they suck. You know, just the lawyers in general or whatever.
But it was a sad situation to be sitting in the middle of this mess that didn't have to be messy if people were wanting to be professional. And we've never had a true professional, any type of professional communication with this group throughout this entire lawsuit.
And now Bruce Tharp, Chris Ronquillo, and Fred Rubenstein are in charge. They are now the owners of the brand, coming into everything that was going on, including the 7 Levels of Hate series, which is now preparing for the 6th match. And so now we didn't understand or really know, I think at the time, how that was going to impact what we were doing, because the plans that we had set in motion from a creative standpoint were ironclad and concrete for more than, at that point, probably about 18 months with the previous administration. Bob Trowbridge, acting as the executive director, had green-lighted everything that we were going to do to that point and forward when the ownership changed. And so I remember thinking to myself, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for anybody to come in and really change anything from the standpoint of the momentum that we had achieved and the exposure that it was getting in the wrestling media coverage and just the actual attendance and the buzz in the towns that we were going to. I was naive, I think, in the sense thinking these people who I had worked for previously on a number of occasions and always gotten along with would understand, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let these guys continue to do what they were going to do, and we'll figure out a strategy and a plan going forward for that after the fact. And I was wrong.
I stay out of everything for the most part. Listen, in the wrestling part, I will do the wrestling. I run my own business with my own, Colt Cabana stuff and my, and all the empire that I'm trying to do. But when you hire me out as an independent wrestler, that's what I do. I come and I wrestle. And now all of a sudden there's all this politics coming in with this new board and the NWA.
I went through a series of conference calls with the new ownership of the NWA and kind of just reiterated what we were doing and what the plans were going forward, and was under the assumption, based on our conversations, that okay, the status quo is perfect and we're on board and everything's great and change nothing, which is exactly what I wanted to hear. I thought at that point, having worked with the NWA and really busted my ass for, at that point, 5 years, entitled me to enough respect that they would give me, not carte blanche necessarily, but allow me to finish out this storyline that largely I was the architect for, the way I saw it, which in the end I thought was going to be a boon to the NWA and to Cabana as kind of the standard bearer going forward, which would have done good business for everyone. As it was happening, they were also having conference calls with Colt Cabana.
And I get a phone call. I think I'm on the road at this point. I'm doing a long road trip. I'd been traveling. I think I was probably on the road 7 days in a row or something. And I'm driving, and I take a conference call with these people that I'd never really heard of. And I just think it's interesting that they're trying, you can tell they're trying to boss me around, tell me what's up, tell me what's happening, how it's happening. And then they ask my opinion and what I think and what I've been told. And I said, listen, Adam and I have put so much time, effort, energy into doing this series. The people are really into it. The people seem to be really enjoying it. We have a nice buzz around your title, the NWA title, and your governing body. We obviously we want to finish this thing. The plan, eventually I would like to hold this title, and I would like to take this around the world like I've been promised.
Things were changing rapidly, and a lot of the promoters that we were working with and for in partnerships and making this series possible and actually coming to fruition were dropping off rapidly. And the biggest one to that point was NWA Hollywood. And I got a phone call from Chris Wankulo, I think on a Sunday afternoon. I had just come off the road. And he says, hey, you know, I want to talk to you about something. And I said, sure, you know, what's up? He goes, you know, I know you're scheduled to work for MARQUEZ here coming up in a couple of weeks. And I go, yeah. And he goes, we've made a decision, and we can't allow you to work for David MARQUEZ anymore.
When it was decided that we weren't going to be a part of the organization, they called Pearce and told him that he couldn't appear on our TV anymore as champion. But we were wrapped up in this thing, you know. The last piece of the 7 levels was supposed to happen here on television. And then we had to scurry of where it's going to go.
And now all of a sudden Dave MARQUEZ, who's with the NWA, has put so much into this, time, effort, money, times a million. Now he's being, you know, wronged, or just maybe not appreciated. And so Adam and Dave and a lot of people go into this big giant fight, political fight.
And it made me angry because it told me that at that moment they had no respect. Let me correct that. He had no respect for the work that we had put in, not just in Hollywood, but throughout the country, and trying to make relevant a brand that for whatever reason has stepped on its dick time and time again since the mid-90s. And I said to him, you're not going to tell me where I can work. And then he backed off and said, you're right, I don't have the right to do that. But we don't have any interest, we meaning the new ownership of the NWA, we don't have any interest in having our brand or our champions represented on his television program. And from a business standpoint, I didn't understand it then, I don't understand it now. Here is television every week in Los Angeles that no one has been able to secure on broadcast television since the 60s and 70s, doing more than respectable numbers and having an outreach through the internet that is far exceeding what other NWA members, for the most part, are doing.
We started this feud here on KDOC, on television in Los Angeles. We're going to end this series here. It's going to be a TV moment, a magic moment. It makes all the sense in the world. And you know, these bullies, you know, with their suits and ties, have now put the kibosh to it.
From a business standpoint, wouldn't it make more sense to simply do nothing and allow me to wear this championship and promote not only myself as champion, but your brand in Los Angeles on a television show that's seeing upwards of 6 figures in terms of audience every week? And the response that I got to that was the lawsuit and the issues therein were more important than that. And not being involved in what those issues were that were manifesting themselves via attorneys and court proceedings and whatnot, I simply said, I disagree with it. I think it's stupid. I don't think it does anybody any good. I don't think it does the brand any good, and it certainly doesn't me any good to take myself off of television in Los Angeles. Selfishly speaking, now as an independent contractor, it makes no sense for me to pull myself off of TV in LA. So I'm going to work for who I want to work for, and if you're telling me I can't wear your belt, then that's your loss. And I think you're being short-sighted in saying that. And that's what they wanted, and that's what we did.
Now, last time Adam Pearce, he took care of me in that dog collar match in Boston. It's interesting, we're in a Texas death match here in Oregon. Last time I was here, I was wrestling in front of 18,000 people. I understand the big match situations. I understand the hype. And there's a lot of hype right here, and there's a lot on the line. Pearce, you might be the champion right now, but think of it retrospectively. I am up 3-2, and I plan on finishing this thing tonight, a Texas death match.
Stay tuned.
So we still have to finish this thing, you know. We still a lot of buzz, you know. We know about the internal idiocracies of the NWA, not necessarily the NWA, but of these lawyers and LLCs and corporate America now. But we've set this thing up for so long. Another long stretch, it's a long series, and you know, just like any great story, you want to tell the ending. You want to tell it all out. You want to see it to its end. I think it's ridiculous to start such a long publicized series and just like cut it out. So, you know, I think Adam and I were under the impression that like, well, we're gonna finish this, and then wherever it goes, wherever you want to do, you can do whatever. But we put our heart and our soul and our mind and our blood and our sweat into 7 levels of hate, and we're gonna finish it out, and we're gonna tell the story for the people.
So we're going to Salem, Oregon for stage 6, which was the Texas Death Match, and not knowing at that point ultimately what the end result was going to be. We didn't know at that point what the NWA wanted. Still hoping that they were going to allow us to finish things off as we had set out, and we played that accordingly.
I was not scheduled actually to have one of the matches. It was supposed to be, I believe it was back in North Carolina, and there was a problem. And Adam always knows, when in doubt, give Jeff a call and I'll bail him out. It's just kind of the way it is, Adam, you know it. You call, I fix. They needed to have one of the matches, and I said, well, give me a couple days. He said, can you let me know in about 3 hours? So we compromised on a day. And I talked to my backers and my booking staff, and of course we wanted to have the match. Having seen again a lot of the pre-series matches and then seeing some of the videos of the 7 levels matches, I wasn't going to pass it up.
So the series is tied 3-3, and then a bombshell's dropped on us. I remember getting a phone call in the afternoon during the week from Fred Rubenstein and Chris Ronquillo telling me that they no longer wanted to pursue a business relationship with Colt Cabana.
And then I hear from the inside, from their camp, that they don't want to work with Colt Cabana anymore. Now, the reasons they gave, from my understanding, is as idiotic as the majority of the stuff that they talk about.
Chris Ronquillo told me, you know, Colt Cabana's not going to be the guy. He didn't say the magic words to me when we had our conference call, and he even went as far as to say to me, you know, we don't feel like he respects the championship or wants to be NWA champion, which didn't sit well with me because I know that to be completely false.
I think their decision was based more on it wasn't their idea. Therefore, it wasn't an idea they embraced.
And I said, listen, my schedule books up very quick. You know, this is what I get paid. And it comes back because I'm going to advertise for you. I'm going to bring in new fans that you've never had. And we're going to scratch each other's back. It's a beautiful relationship. And I think the fact that, that I had a nice following, I don't think they liked that because I don't think they were going to be able to control me. And that's exactly what I didn't like in WWE. Now, I'm not saying, you know, I probably would love to have a nice run in WWE and make $1 million and be a champion or whatever. But the idea, at the end of the day, when you look at it from afar, is that they control everyone and they book you out and you have to do what they say, and then that's how it goes. And you get a nice paycheck for it. Here, you don't get any paycheck for it. You know, you get nothing. I book myself out, and that's, you know, that's the end of the day. And so I think they wanted to control me without giving me a paycheck or a contract. You know, there's these big businessmen, and there's no contract. Not that I want a contract. All I want to do is take my dates, give me your NWA show dates. I will wrestle on them. Make sure you're giving me far enough in advance because I book out very far in advance. I'm wrestling 4 times a week, and just show me, give me your dates early, and I'll take them and I'll do them. And I think they were upset that they just couldn't puppet me. And they wanted to make sure that I didn't hold this title, and they had somebody that, I don't know, you know, somebody else hold the title. And I didn't know, couldn't imagine who else you would want really to represent you as a champion, but I guess they had other ideas.
But these guys are saying they're businessmen. And here you have a loved, I dare say, a Ricky Steamboat type of a personality that people love and love talking about and love watching. And they don't want to work with them.
All you have to do is follow Cabana's career at all, and you know Cabana is tremendous at getting himself booked. Now, does that present issues? Well, I guess to some extent, because, you know, again, Cabana's a pro and he does this for a living, and so it's probably not often that Cabana's sitting by the phone waiting for it to ring. But I never ran into a situation where Cabana said, you know, I'm not going to work for this, or I'm not going to work here, or, you know, call me in 8 months or anything of the sort. Again, our time was limited together, but that's, you know, I keep going back to both of them. In my dealings with them were nothing other than consummate pros.
And I just remember saying to him, you know, you're making a mistake. You're making a mistake. And not only are you making a mistake, but you're really shitting on the effort that these two guys, myself and Cabana, have put forth.
From that phone conversation that we had, they don't want Colt Cabana representing them as an NWA champion, and they don't want me, you know, as their business partners. I get the idea that they just want nothing to do with me, which, again, I don't know. I think it's so crazy because I like to think of myself as an easy person to work with, and I like to think of myself as an obvious person to work with, someone who people enjoy seeing come to wrestle. And I don't think there's really much of an ego, or humble enough that it's easy, you know, to have me on your show, and I'm not going to cause a problem, nor am I going to get drunk or hammered or ruin a hotel room. Or it's you know, wrestling in my mind, as much as it is the most fun job of all time, and I'm grateful to be in it. It is a business, and I handle myself in a business way that I know if I want to come back, or if I want to, you know, represent myself as Colt Cabana the wrestler, I'm going to do good, and I'm not going to be an obnoxious jerk, and I'm going to represent your company and your show very well. But they didn't want. They saw it in a different way, and maybe I rubbed them the wrong way by sticking up for myself. I don't know.
My personal opinion is it was a terrible decision. Did nothing for the NWA. Did nothing for the new ownership of the brand. It did not help them take a positive step forward, and as they had suggested, become a positive force to embrace promotions. Instead, they created an act of alienating.
I just remember feeling hurt and defiant and upset, and more than all of that, thinking, do these people really not understand what the fuck they're doing?
They went out there, and basically the new group wanted the title back. They didn't really care about working with Adam or having Adam the champion. They just wanted the title back so they can do whatever they wanted with it. It's theirs. I mean, come on, it's theirs. So they have their right to do whatever they want.
We had just finished the 6th match. We're preparing for the 7th match, knowing now that we can't go to Los Angeles, which is what the planned 7th match always was. Luckily, promoter Ben Gilbert in Melbourne, Australia came through. And now, through a bunch of drama that we had nothing to do with, we're actually giving an international aspect to this series, which to me is a huge benefit to not only just me and Cabana, but to the brand itself.
Adam Pearce is the champion. And they're coming up with scenarios of how to take the belt off of Pearce. And this is where it gets humorous to me, because it really is. There's no business sense in any of this.
And I get a phone call from Chris Ronquillo from Houston, and he says, hey, I noticed you're booked the first week of October in West Virginia. And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just have you drop the belt in West Virginia that weekend. And I said, let me stop you. Are you telling me that not only do you not want to continue a relationship with Cabana through the rest of the series and going forward, but now you want me to give the championship up to somebody else cold with absolutely zero build, in West Virginia that isn't going to draw well, and in spite of the promoters, not just that weekend in West Virginia, the following 3 days of the next week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the week after that for 2 dates, one of which was for Bruce Tharpe in South Texas, who owns the NWA, and then going to Australia. I said, are you telling me that you're asking me to not fulfill the business agreements that I made to these promoters? I said, I have deposits and plane fare, not to mention the advertising expense that these individual promoters have gone to for weeks and months leading up to these shows, that the NWA World Champion is coming to their town, and you're telling me that you've made a decision that, oh, to hell with all of the logistics and planning that go along with that, we're just going to take the belt off you and put it on someone else.
So I knew that they wanted to make Damian Wayne the champion because they had told me that previously, and where the creative was going to go. Not that I was totally against that. I like Damian Wayne. But the way they wanted to do it was silly. And from what I understand, you know, they wanted to put Adam in a scenario where he went to somewhere in Virginia and was just going to drop the title, no promotion, no hype, no nothing. Damian Wayne, NWA World's Champion, the end. Adam Pearce, make your exit.
I'll never forget it. He says to me, oh, sometimes champions lose. And I said, number one, wrestling isn't real. And by virtue of what we do in terms of planning things ahead of time, we know who's going to win and who's going to lose. And by virtue of that, we make business deals based on it. And I said, so unless you're willing to write a check for not just my own personal pay and income for those events, but for the flight money that's been advanced and paid for by the promoters on top of their advertising expense, there ain't no way in hell I'm not fulfilling the obligation that I made to these people. There's a reason why I have a good reputation in this business, and it's because I deliver what I sell.
Well, Adam is booked. He has plane tickets. He has commitments. And what does he do? He keeps them. And if I know Adam the way that I believe I know Adam, he probably held them to his laurels. If you want me not to go, you have to pay these guys back, and you have to reimburse the plane tickets. And I guarantee you that's how this thing prolonged, because I know kind of a professional that I dealt with in both Pearce and Cabana.
And it just told me, like, for the first time in the past, 5 or 6 years to that point working with the National Wrestling Alliance, I knew it wasn't going to work out. And I just simply couldn't get on the same page with this guy who I don't believe knew what he was doing. I certainly believe that he thought he was the smartest guy in the room. Just ask him. And what he said and what he wanted to do was going to happen, and be damned to anyone who stood opposite that. And I wasn't willing to budge. And that was kind of the beginning of the end, I think, of the relationship for me and the National Wrestling Alliance to that point anyway. I said to him, look, I'm not willing to erase and try and rewrite 18 months of storyline now in 30 days. We've got the 7th match lined up. It's going to be a steel cage. It's now going to be in Australia. Again, that's an added benefit to myself, Cabana, and now to the NWA. They're not wanting us to finish this thing the way we set out to do so. And the more I thought about it, the more unwilling I was to go along with that. And I called him, Chris Ronquillo, to that point, who I was dealing with, and it wasn't going well. And I said, we need to figure something out because I'm not willing to win. I just said, there's no way I'm going to Australia and I'm beating Cabana and keeping this belt. I'm not doing it. I'm not willing to win. I remember him saying, so what are you saying, you don't want to win? I said, I am not only telling you I don't want to win, I will not win. We need to figure out what the deal is. And I got a phone call about an hour and a half later from Fred Rubenstein. He says, you know what, you and I are going to are going to talk about this now. You're not going to deal with Chris anymore. And I said, this is probably the smartest thing the new NWA ownership has done. I said, you're a wrestling guy. I've been around you for a long time. You've been around a long time. I said, I'm not stupid. And I said, I'm not willing to rip off and not deliver what we've sold to these people. I said, it's bad enough that the relationship between you guys and Cabana is not going to be what it was promised to be. And I understand your new ownership. You've got your own ideas. You've got your own people probably in place. I said, it doesn't hurt any less for he and I to have gone through what we have, keeping in mind that he's already kind of been screwed once by the NWA, and here we are now trying to correct that wrong, if you will, met with an entirely new obstacle to get past, with new people who we don't know as well, who are asking us to do things that just, in a business sense, are wrong. And he says, what are we going to do? What can we do? And the only thing I could think of is the end result from my standpoint is Colt Cabana must win. The end result from your standpoint is Colt Cabana can't be champion after the series. Let's take the belt out of the equation. Release a statement saying that you know, due to the concern for the safety of our wrestlers, we can't in good conscience sanction the 7th match because it's a steel cage and it's anything goes, and we know the level and degree of violence is going to be amped, you know, 100-fold, and we can get out of having any obligation to the championship that way. I said it's not going to make the fans happy who are expecting to have a title match, although they're still going to have a steel cage match and they're still going to have the same talent involved. It's not going to make the promoter down there happy that he can't fulfill an obligation that he has to his fans for advertising a championship match. I said, again, I disagree wholeheartedly with what you guys are doing, and I think you're being short-sighted and you're forgetting what you do have in front of you, which is the possibility of not only a championship match in Australia in front of a packed house, because at that point it was sold out already, and a title change in Australia, which has never happened. I said, you know, in a lot of degrees we're missing the boat. And I said, we're putting a stain on something that I think to this point has been great for not just me and Cabana, but for you guys. And we feel disrespected. I just think it was shitty, you know, and it's certainly not what any of us wanted, but I think it was kind of the only way out that didn't really fuck everything up.
In your view, how did the change of the NWA ownership impact the Pearce-Cabana feud, and by default, the already in progress 7-level series?
I don't think it impacted the feud at all. Let's remember something. That feud, at least as I understood it, was not predicated on a championship. It was predicated on the one who won 4 out of 7, just like in baseball's World Series. If Adam lost 4 out of the 7 matches, he was going to retire. As far as I'm concerned, nothing interfered with the completion of that program. Certainly the NWA did not interfere with it.
Two men who've known each other going on 20 years, climbing within the not-so-friendly confines of that steel cage. I think we understand what's on the line. And while the National Wrestling Alliance has seen fit to take this out of the equation, don't think for a minute that I haven't lost sight of what's really going on here. No, I said at the outset, if I couldn't prove myself to you, but more importantly to myself, that I'm the better man, if I couldn't beat you 4 matches, a best out of 7, that I would walk away. And as I stand here in suburban Melbourne, Australia, I am prepared to do just that.
Not allowing the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship to be defended in Australia, essentially kind of pulling the rug out from underneath Cabana and Pearce over that 7 levels of hate feud, really just is bad business.
I think it was insulting. It was insulting not just to Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana, who had put this series together, and it was really an unprecedented effort for two guys to put together a series of matches to go all across the country and internationally as well, and to have it be a focal point that people were talking about throughout the country, throughout the world, and to not allow them to complete that body of work the way they conceived it. I think it's a disappointment. It's a disappointment to them. It's a disappointment to all of us who had bought into this series of matches. And I think ultimately the NWA let itself down by not allowing it to be completed the way it was conceived. And at that point, they could have done anything they wanted.
The NWA obviously made a huge blunder when they did not sanction match number 7 and let the whole series play out the way it was originally intended.
The NWA, by doing that, they really hurt themselves, because this could have been something really special for them.
And you can only imagine if they had taken greater advantage of the 7 levels of hate as they went to move forward with the NWA brand under new ownership. Would have been a great way to start.
I think it was vital that the NWA had to continue with the way that was booked. The storyline had already started. You can't change the last chapter once you're midway through a story, or even further in this case. So I think that, yeah, it was a mistake in trying to change a story midway through.
It's just too bad that politics plays a part in everything we do. So,
The NWA dropped the ball huge on this. You've got Colt Cabana, who is a guy that CM Punk had been talking about regularly on Monday Night Raw. You've got Adam Pearce, who's one of the great performers. Those two guys are magic. Those two guys are stars. And there are a lot of wrestlers out there on the independent circuit. There are a lot of wrestlers in the NWA. But there are very few people that you can legitimately call stars. And when you get two guys like this who have proven that they can go across the country and have an impact on business everywhere they go, you grab onto those guys and you hang on for dear life. So, yeah, they dropped the ball big time.
The NWA not only dropped the ball, they kicked the ball completely out of the state. In my estimation, it was a tragedy that it wasn't allowed to play out as it should have. Politics reared its ugly head once again, and something that really was magical, all of a sudden you got a damper at the end.
But I can't imagine the frustration on Adam and Colt's part, just having worked so hard, and Dave and everyone who's involved with this thing, bring that NWA title back up from obscurity basically to something that was pretty viable and important in the wrestling industry, and then to have it basically kind of yanked away from them in a couple of very unceremonious fashions is still leaves a bitter taste in I'm sure everybody's mouth, not just mine.
This match has been unsanctioned by the NWA. It is the final stage in the 7 Levels of Hate series.
So we get to Australia and we know, I think we'd finally come to grips with the fact that things from a creative standpoint weren't going to end the way that we wanted them to.
Even though it's fitting to do this last match in Hollywood where it all started, I think it's really cool. It says, we're going to take this thing international, you know, just like the guys before, Flair, Briscoe, Fez, all around the world. We're going to take this thing to Australia, and we're going to finish this series out there.
And so, you know, it was what it was supposed to be. It's the ultimate blow-off. It's Game 7 of the World Series. You know, both teams are even at 3. You know there's going to be a winner. You know there's going to be a loser. And we wanted to take away any discomfort from the fans when the announcement was made before the match that the match was no longer sanctioned by the National Wrestling Alliance and that the title wasn't on the line. So we wanted to start hot.
It's a cage match. You know, the cage match is one of the most fun, epic matches in wrestling. This is an epic conclusion. And there's a sold-out crowd in Melbourne.
We had to send people away. People were coming in long after the second match. You know, and that's just lining up. They were just trying to find places. We ended up with people standing, you know, at the back. It was just so much. There was not spare room in the place. You couldn't move.
And when Adam and Colt stepped through that curtain and were finally face to face in the ring, I've never heard an Australian crowd quite that hot, quite that into it. And from bell to bell, they were as loud as humanly possible.
I come off the top of the cage, he kicks out, and I put him right in that Billy Goat's curse. And as you see him tap, and he's bleeding down, you know, onto the mat, he taps out, and it's all concluded. It finally came to a giant conclusion in the fans' eyes that this thing has come to an end. Colt has won. Pearce will no longer, you know, be the champion. He is out of the NWA. What a fun conclusion to the whole series.
Physically, I think both of us by the 7th match were tired of having our heads kicked in by each other. But really proud of what we were able to do, notwithstanding all of the kind of obstacles behind the scenes that were thrust on us that nobody had any idea about.
But now you got to add in all this politics. The match wasn't sanctioned because we have to dodge around these guys, and it's just such a weird situation.
Did the NWA taking away sanctioning from this match make a difference? It's a yes or no answer.
NWA, this new guy, he has this thing where these two guys go to Australia and it sells out. And he's like, I don't want anything to do with it. That idea is so bizarre. He's like, I want to have 40 people in Texas. That's where it's at. So he wants nothing to do with this awesome series and this sold out crowd for a giant cage match.
I think, to be brutally honest with you, if Adam didn't come out wearing that belt on the night, for that 20 minutes, didn't make a lick of difference.
We were able to tell our tale and close that chapter of our wrestling lives mostly the way we wanted to.
I realized that before we came down here, the National Wrestling Alliance decided that it was appropriate for some unforeseen stinking reason that they would not sanction this as a championship match. I agree with you.
Politics.
I agree with you. And as far as I'm concerned, Colt Cabana, you are the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
This thing is finally over, and I won, and at the end of the day, I won. He hands over the title, and everything I've been saying on camera, my frustrations of from people not believing me, from the WWE to Ring of Honor to now the NWA, and it's so unfortunate that it's time to do something. It's time to make a statement, I guess.
I told Fred Rubenstein the week previous that we were going to leave it with controversy and that I was going to step down as champion because that's what we agreed to, and hopefully we would garner enough attention via what we were going to do that it would be something that the NWA could use as a springboard into whatever new chapter they wanted to write.
So much heritage, pride, and prestige that comes with being the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Ric Flair, Harley Race, Lou Fez, Eric Von Erich. The list of the past superstars who have held this title, not superstars, pro wrestlers. This, the NWA, that's the past. There's an NWA board right now who are stupid, morons, idiots, and don't see the future of wrestling. And that I want nothing to be a part of. I beat you in your match, 7 levels of hate. I agreed to your circumstance. I agreed to go to the towns that you wanted to go to. And I saw that these towns didn't care about some stupid letters. You're right. They cared about the wrestlers. They cared about the future. Not of some title, but a professional wrestler, Adam Pearce, and professional wrestler, Colt Cabana.
And I think, again, there's that respect of the 7 matches that we put ourselves through hell through. God, I didn't want to do any more of these matches. It took years off my life, I think.
Neither one of us, neither Cabana or myself, thought that we wanted to ignore the things that had happened behind the scenes.
And that's where I said no thank you, because it isn't what it is. It isn't what it was, that title. Because now it's represented by these guys who nobody even knows and obviously has no respect for what has been put into it from our standpoint, or even cares. I don't know what their respect is, but it just seems like they didn't care. And they had their own vision, and that's fine. So let them vision something else without me.
You know, he said some things and he got some things off his chest, and I think every single solitary one of them was warranted and true and real.
So I accept that I've won this title. I accept that I've won the title of 7 levels of hate. I accept that I have won this feud. I accept that I have put all on the line. You have put all on the line. And somehow, crazy enough, I came out on top. I accept that, but I don't accept this.
See, I don't need this corporate title. If this is the people representing this title, I don't need it. You know, what I need are these fans, and that's been the case in point when I thought, you know, I had to get a real job because WWE fired me, and the fans, you know, literally said, no, you don't, we are going to support you, and they have literally supported me for the past 3 years, and that outreach and that outcry made me say that I don't need this title with all this bullshit politics. I don't need this to represent me. I don't need this if I don't want to be involved in this. I don't want to be involved in the negativity. I just don't need it in my life.
Well, if you don't accept it, then I don't accept it either. When the National Wrestling Alliance did what they did and told me under no circumstance would they sanction this as a championship match, what they did is rob you. What they did is rob every single one of you. But the most disgusting thing they did is they robbed themselves of one of the finest National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight Champions that ever lived, in my opinion. So if you don't want to hold on to this, then I can't hold on to this anymore. Effective immediately, in front of everybody here, I stepped down as National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight Champion. I said at the outset, if I lost 7 levels of hate, I would leave the NWA forever. And I want you all to know, you pushed me out when you turned him out. Wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Granted, they didn't like some of the things that were said and some of the things that were done, and one of the things that stands out to me is Cabana, in effect, we're holding the championship belt, and I remember saying, if you don't want this championship, then I don't want it either. And then I stepped down as champion, and we both simultaneously dropped the belt in the center of the ring, and I picked it up and kissed it one final time and walked out of the ring. And as I'm doing so, and I didn't see this until after the fact when I saw the footage, he's like the major league manager that's just been thrown out of the game, and he's kicking dirt over home plate. And I think that offended the NWA more than anything else. And frankly, They deserved it.
But I think it's fun how the story was to conclude, you know, the story concluded with good over evil, but then the credits ran and then there was that extra piece of that documentary of like, what are they doing now? And we saw it right in that ring as Adam and I dropped that title, and it's like, well, here's what's going on now.
I think it was an unfortunate episode. If I could ever unring a bell, that would be the one. I understand the emotion. I understand the anger that was behind it. The question is, was it proper to vent any possible negative feelings, or was it proper to protect the integrity of the championship?
Go onto the YouTube account, read all the comments on there. You know, with over the 30,000 people at this stage that have viewed that video, read the comments underneath it, and I think you'll know who's to blame.
Colt Cabana could have been, and should be, and in my view is, the world heavyweight champion, and should be the standard bearer for their brand. And as it stands right now, they have neither one of us, and that's really sad. I always thought and always hoped that 7 Levels of Hate would give a blueprint, in effect, not just to independent wrestling, but more specifically and more pointedly to the National Wrestling Alliance, that this is what can be achieved when people work together.
The whole world was watching. It captivated people. That's why people were counting this as one of the feuds of the year.
A lot of things had to come together to make this happen. Could it be a blueprint? Yes. Is it possible, and is it going to be very difficult to replicate in today's world with the independent wrestling scene as it is now? Yes.
I don't think there's any question about that. My question is, can it be replicated? And I don't think it can. I think you had a very rare situation where the two guys who were involved, Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana, are so good and they're so creative and they have so much vision and they're such professionals that everything was laid out exactly as it should have been. Was it a blueprint? Absolutely. Will it be used as a blueprint? I'm not sure.
Is it a blueprint? Yeah, I think it has to be, because I don't know that there's a whole lot of other examples as to how you do it.
I mean, it's groundbreaking. I think it's a great idea. I think that what Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana have combined to do that, fantastic.
There's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of things that can go wrong. When it does go right, I think it's a real opportunity and a real boon to do something innovative, creative, the best of the old school, the best of the new school with the internet and the new media, and to put all those pieces together. When it's done correctly, I think it's a fantastic concept.
If anyone is paying attention, and they should be paying attention, this is the future of professional wrestling. 7 Levels of Hate two guys that had never set foot in New England Championship Wrestling for one single minute were able to come in based on a series of promos delivered via the internet, via our own programming and via their own viral videos, and were able to sell out 2 times. And not just here in our company, but across the country. They did business everywhere they went. If that isn't a signpost that says, hey, people, pay attention to this, then nothing is.
7 matches across the world, from LA to Australia. They had it.
7 Levels of Hate was hugely successful. The NWA gets their world title back, and who's talking about it?
I think it was marvelous, and I think that it's something that needs to be perpetuated in the legacy of the NWA.
I'm kind of struggling right now. I can't think of a comparable feud in the last at least 10 years, maybe more than that.
From the top of the mountain, from the WWE champions to the bottom, I've been there. Colt Cabana and Adam Pearce are, even if I wasn't a part of the business, I'd be watching. I'd be watching. What a great, great, great series of matches that they have, and what fantastic professional athletes they are.
It'll definitely go down in history as one of the best feuds, at least in the last 10, 20 years. There hasn't been guys that have put so much forward. I think PWI even named it runner-up for the feud of the year. All good things, eventually have to come to an end, and it was definitely gave you everything. It had a great beginning, had a real violent middle, and it had an explosive, shocking end. I'd say they did a pretty good job there.
People are being objective and looking back on what we tried to do and what we did, they'll look fondly and they'll say, I hope they'll look fondly and smile and give credit to the people that tried, because we tried. And I think in a lot of ways we succeeded. And I know I'm extremely proud of it.
My name was Obama. This is for them haters still living with they mamas, the ones that stick their nose in all your damn drama. Why you working hard like my name was Piston Honda? This is for the lames that early in my career let me do all the work, thought they deserved all the cheers. They only cared about was the person in the mirror. Now they all fell off. Homie, I knew it then, you were also soft. I ain't gotta prove nothing to nobody or no one. I didn't have a dollar to my name, I didn't give up. Studied the game like it's chess, studied the game to be best. I can wear every hat from manager to writing raps. If I can't do it, man, I know you gotta be lying. I'm just a right brother trying to prove I can fly. You can have all the talent, keep your big machine funny. My heart is that one thing none of you suckers saw coming. My life, they want me dead, they want my family not to be fair, but I won't fade. I say at it all day. They want me to fail, they want me to fall, they want my career to hit a wall, but I won't fade. I say at it all day. Yeah. What would you do if you were my girl keeps on bitching and bitching, saying I'll never listen and money's missing. When I go to work, my boss is itching. They catch me slipping again. I gave everything I got, included my time and my money. I can't get none of it back. It's so sad that it's funny. I'm even mad when it's sunny, telling that bitter rapper story. I spit sicker and sicker, trying to do like those before me. In the studio, Sylvester Stallone, slurring my words for the fans, smoking that herb, tweeting my song like birds. I promise we gon' make it, cuz couple downloads of my single helps, and my girl can keep her home. Miss Norbert, throw me a bone. If not, I ain't crying, never gonna stop trying. With a laptop and a heart full of iron, I slay giants. With a laptop and a heart full of iron, I slay giants.
My life, they want me dead, they want my family not to be fair, but I won't fade. I stay at it all day. They want me to fail, they want me to fall, they want my career to hit a wall, but I won't fade. I stay at it all day.
I said this is for my soldiers who be up against the wall, and you know you're gonna make it cause you feel it in your soul. And these haters try to tell you you should quit and walk away, but you've been working at your dream every day, all day. They don't understand cause they never stood for something, and you do it for the love, so the money means nothing. And you laugh when they tell you should quit and walk away, cause you've been working at your dream every day, all day. Fate.